The data center dilemma in Ohio now being debated at the State House. Hear from tech giants and why one developer says it's not stopping their plans to build. Plus, a local nonprofit is closing its doors for good after decades of service.
With the lack of connection to be able to get those federal dollars, that made it increasingly difficult for us to be able to get funding.
Now we're looking at how other food pantries are working to fill the need. And as boom towns struggle with housing, there is now more help to make home ownership a reality for more Ohioans. What state lawmakers came up with this week. Central Ohio is booming. We all see it and we all can feel it. So here's what we uncovered this week in Boomtown. For the first time, a national chain is coming to Columbus. Doghouse is opening later this summer. The popular California-based hot dog spot plans to set up shop at the Gateway University District by the Ohio State campus. And that's not the only buzz in Boomtown this week. The Buc-ee's craze in Ohio is about to get bigger. The popular travel center with a beaver mascot is planning to open its second shop in Ohio. We'll share that story a little bit later. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Boomtown. I'm Angela Ann. Let's get to the headlines first. Olentangy Schools broke ground this week on its 5th high school. It's another sign of more growth coming to that part of Delaware County. There are roughly 24,000 kids in the district, with more expected as this area develops. The new high school should open in fall of 2028. As New Albany keeps growing, a new fire station is coming to life. This week, the Plain Township Fire Department broke ground on a second fire station. This is going to be on New Albany Condit Road, just north of Central College. Planning documents show the substation will have 6 firefighters on duty across 3 shifts. And construction is now underway on a new affordable housing development in downtown Columbus. Take a look here. The Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority laying the foundation on Aspire Columbus. It is a $29 million project being built at the former United Way headquarters downtown. It's also the largest summer construction program in the agency's 92-year history. An investment worth more than $1 billion is coming to Central Ohio. Cologix is expanding its data center infrastructure with 2 new campuses in Delaware and Licking counties, adding to the 4 already in play. The company is also getting a 50% sales tax exemption from the state over the next 10 years. Now, this announcement came just hours before the state issued a pause on tax breaks for future data centers. It's a move that has received mixed reviews from development leaders all across the state, including the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. Now, the governor says this pause is not a ban on data centers. It just gives lawmakers some time to review. Some have criticized the amount these incentives have cost the state already, an estimated $1.6 billion in tax revenue in 2025 alone. Now, for months, we have shared how communities across Central Ohio are starting to fight back. Now, it's the tech giants taking a turn. Here's 10 TV's Ava Hedges.
Today, we heard testimony from data center companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta. And now we've heard questions, concerns, and answers that we've already been hearing over and over again over water, noise pollution, as well as taxpayer dollars. But now, a question of national security concerns.
We're being told by our data centers that 50% of the growth and the demand for the building of these centers is around AI developments.
Heidi Workman represents House District 72 in Portage County. She's the vice chair of technology and innovation, and Workman says the development of AI is a global race for control.
Why should Americans be concerned?
So the issue with the race is whether we achieve that dominance before our adversaries.
Workman says she wants to see the United States compete and dominate the race to ensure our national security during the development of AI data centers. During the hearing, Representative Workman asked the panel of data center companies if they're using chips made in the United States or sourcing those from adversaries. Here's an answer from Google.
The vast majority of our supply chain is here in the U.S., not the whole thing, right? But the vast majority.
After the hearing, I asked Representative Workman what questions concerned Americans need to be asking.
We need to be asking if they're building on American soil, and that is the national security imperative. How are they securing our data? How are they protecting our privacy? And what are they going to do going forward to make sure we're secure?
In Columbus, Ava Hedges, 10 TV News.
Ava, thank you. And while we keep tabs on what lawmakers decide to do, it seems almost every week another community is coming out against data center development. 10 TV's Carla Rogner explains now why Grove City Council members approved a moratorium on data centers for at least a year.
Protesters could be heard from outside as developers presented a preliminary plan for a data center to City Council and hundreds of Grove City residents who packed into the hall and several overflow rooms. Headwaters Site Development shared preliminary plans to build a data center here between Wrench and Betty Roads. We heard from several residents before the meeting.
If a data center gets built here, we'll just move out of the city. I'm retired, I could go where I want, but we like Grove City. We like the people here, but that's probably the bottom line. If it gets filled, we'll leave.
I'm worried about our bills going up and our rivers going dry.
Developers tried to quell some of those concerns about the use of natural resources, saying there would be limits on how much water is used, and the eventual company who operates the site would absorb additional power costs. Some city council members and residents said they took issue with a letter recently sent by the developers' lawyers to the city, which says a moratorium would violate the developer's due process. After the meeting, the developer told me they will not take legal action and they still want to work with the city through the moratorium process.
Will you keep your goal to eventually come to Grove City?
We'll see what happens. We still very strongly believe in the attributes of this site and the reason that we were here in the first place. So, we still believe this is the right use for the land and a good thing for the community. And we hope that through the planning process, we can get that message across to City Council.
And that was Carla Rogner reporting. In an effort to ease the data center storm, Google this week released a set of company guidelines on how much water data centers actually use. Well, the guidelines give a list of suggested water management principles, including how to evaluate local water supplies before building a center. Also, using alternative water resources whenever possible and replenishing more water than what is actually used. Google says it does want to stay transparent about its water use. In 2024, the tech giant used more than 7 billion gallons of fresh water. Well, we know a big challenge with any boomtown is affordability. From housing to putting food on the table, this week, a critical food source for more than 200,000 people is coming to an end. Local Matters recently announced it is closing down and will cease operations at the end of this week. The nonprofit has been around since 2008, but leaders cited declining donations and cuts in federal funding as reasons why it can no longer continue. This closure means the end to critical food services like its veggie van, which goes to some of Central Ohio's most vulnerable and underserved communities. Gardens will be gone, along with cooking classes and so much more. Earlier this week, I spoke with the founder of Local Matters and also the executive director.
I started this work, going towards starting this organization in 1998. So there was a lot of groundwork that needed to be laid. And then we incorporated in 2008. Knowing that there was a need for everyone on the economic spectrum, no matter what their circumstances they were born into, should have access to healthier food and know what to do with it. And that mission, I'm happy to say, for us has stayed solid all these years. And the good part of all this is that when I started this work, there really wasn't much, if anything, out there in terms of people really and organizations and institutions thinking about people who were underserved and low income needing these kinds of services of food and food education. But now it's a part of our food culture in this city that everyone is considered. And we know we have a lot to do. We are up against the federal changes SNAP benefits, and the state is also considering some changes relative to SNAP. So the challenge always continues, but the good news is there's a whole lot more than just us who are involved in this. So I can leave knowing that I believe we did good work. We always worked with community, not for anyone, and that the work was what people ask us for. And that this work is going to go on. We're working to transfer some of our programs, but it's going to go on in many ways with groups and organizations, groups, other nonprofits that we help to bring them up.
I think that's
also
beautifully said, Noreen, because like you said, 18 years ago, this was not on anyone's radar. And now this is part of the everyday conversation, as it should be. And so, Yolanda, I turn to you because surely the decision to close Local Matters did not come lightly. You looked at every angle that you guys could to say, can we make this funding work, but it was the result of gradual impacts that Local Matters just said, financially, this is untenable. Walk me through what that looks like, when you have an organization like Local Matters and you have all these funding resources that are just going away.
Well, it's really difficult in that, to your point, it wasn't an instantaneous thing, it was a gradual thing. And I think having so many nonprofits that are existing, not only in this space, but seeking funding in a space where we typically got a lot of our funding not from federal spaces, but a lot of our things came from private foundations, from corporate foundations, from individuals. And with those spaces stretched thinly, with the lack of connection to be able to get those federal dollars, that made it increasingly difficult for us to be able to get funding. It was the same pool, but it was now being parceled in more ways for more nonprofits. And so it was one of those spaces of trying to figure out the viability of the work, right? Because it was really important for us to maintain the quality of the work that we do, and then also making sure that we are doing right by the mission of the organization. And so it was, does this work have to be carried forward under this umbrella, or are there ways for this work to continue so that this legacy can continue under other organizations? And so that's why we've been having conversations with other organizations for program acquisition, and also caring for the people, right? And caring for the people who are delivering the work and who we are serving.
Can you both talk about also what you have witnessed in terms of the growth of Central Ohio, more people moving in, putting more strain on resources such as yourselves, and what are those challenges that people need to be aware of now moving forward, now that Local Matters will no longer exist?
I mean, I grew up here in Columbus, and so it's always amazing watching or going to different parts of the city and seeing, new housing development, apartment buildings, and all of these things go up. I mean, even in my own neighborhood, in my own community, I live in Pickerington, and that's a whole thing where we're looking at like redistricting the schools and trying to figure that out. So it's a thing all over Central Ohio, but recognizing that comes with an influx of people who are varying socioeconomic ranges, and knowing that the work that we do, it doesn't just serve one, it's for everyone, right? This information and this knowledge, what we are trying to work toward is equity for everyone.
Noreen, what
I
do you
think the other part of this is what you mentioned at the beginning, the goal of Boomtown. I know I moved here in 1998, and I always said for many, many, many years to people from outside, because I lived in other cities before I came here, that one of the great things about Columbus is that it's affordable for everyone at that time, that housing was something that was really affordable for so many people. Not everyone, of course, but more than I'd seen in San Francisco, Denver, and Chicago, for example. And now we can't say that. And what that does relative to what you do is talking about how food intersects with housing, for example. If someone has to pay, 3/4 of their income maybe for housing, the food budget is going to get cut. And we know from statistics it is getting cut.
Right.
And it's just, it's really figuring out how do we work on all of these parts of the things that are happening relative to our growth, relative to the economy, relative to cuts and things that are happening from the federal level as Yolanda mentioned that are trickling down that are affecting everyone and everyone's pockets.
Noreen Warnock, Yolanda Owens, you guys are the best. Thanks for all that you've done to help our community.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
You too.
Well, there is one place that is trying to fill the gap, and that's the Worthington Resource Pantry, among many. But it is celebrating 1 year now at a new location that was built out of a need for space and the ability to serve more meals. 10 TV's Ava Hedges shows us the pantry and how it's keeping up with demand.
I don't play golf.
Gary Kiefer has volunteered at the pantry for 3 years.
I'm retired. I have time on my hands.
He says he could be filling his schedule with tea times, but
I don't see the payback in that for me.
the only green he's interested in
Yeah, right in here if you could.
is the green volunteer shirt he wears at the Worthington Resource Pantry.
For me, I'd rather be doing something that I think is going to put some positivity out into the world.
Gary has seen firsthand the positive impact of the pantry.
The line will start forming outside an hour before we open.
That line speaks to the record-breaking numbers the pantry saw just this past year.
We're serving more people than we've ever had in any point in our history, including things like the SNAP pause and the pandemic.
Director of Communications Erin White-Olvey says many of the families they serve say the rising cost of living is affecting their budgets, which means less food on the table and more families turning to the pantry. Gary says a lot of the families he sees have 2 working parents still trying to make ends meet.
If there's one thing that people are going to cut back on once they've paid all the essentials, it's going to be on the food.
Something he finds
quite disheartening, honestly.
But what is inspiring to him is the people and their mission.
These are all people who've given up some portion of their day to come and help other people.
In Worthington,
We'll take it right here.
Ava Hedges, 10 TV News.
Finally, on This Week, fans of beaver nuggets rejoice. Ohio is one step closer to getting another Buc-ee's location. That's right. The gas station Mega Mart chain opened its first store, you might remember, near Dayton in April. That was the first one in Ohio. Well, now there are plans pushing forward for another one in Mansfield. And that is a sure sign that Ohio is a destination boomtown for many businesses. Here's 10 TV's Catherine Simon.
The city of Mansfield and Buc-ee's have been working on this project for some time, and now it's one step closer to the finish line.
I hope it comes sooner than a few years. I think it'll bring a lot of business.
This is the land, 37.5 acres just off I-71, where Buc-ee's is planned to go.
They've been waiting for a couple of years for something big to happen there.
Tuesday night, Mansfield City Council approved a development agreement for the 24-hour travel center.
So last night was really exciting because we have been working on this for actually over a year behind the scenes, but publicly for the last 3 months.
By the numbers, Buc-ee's plans are for a 70,000 square foot store with 120 fueling positions and 71 restrooms. The store will likely have around 200 full-time employees with a starting rate around $18 to $20 an hour.
When you start to think about the impact that they will have on the local economy, it will be noticeable and it will be strong.
Mayor Jody Perry says with the project, some improvements need to be made to public infrastructure in the area. Those working on the agreement say Buc-ee's will front the cost, then be paid back for the public improvements through a 2% sales tax-like charge on everything at the store except for fuel. 1 3/4% of the charge will go to Buc-ee's until they're repaid. 1/4% will go to the city. That extra charge will remain.
I've heard a lot of good things about it as far as their food and their different snacks. So yeah, I'm really impressed that it's coming to Mansfield as well.
In Mansfield, Catherine Simon, 10 TV News.
Catherine, thank you. The timeline for opening the second Buc-ee's still a little unclear, but some leaders gave a rough estimate of 2028. Others say that is when they may break ground. So we'll keep you posted. We do know growth comes with its challenges, the growing pains, but there are solutions. So let us know if you have any questions. Text us at 614-460-3345. And if you are watching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. You can always drop a question right there in the comment section as well. Thanks so much for watching This Week in Boomtown. I'm Angela Ann. We'll see you again next week.